Hey, coach. So excited you found us. A couple things. First of all, down below, um, you will find the complete video of wintheseason.com. It's free. You can go down, register, and get the handouts and get the video and everything that I'm talking about in wintheseason.com. So just check down below and have a great day. Bye.
Roles and rotations. All right, so you're trying to optimize your lineup. How do you pick your lineup? You're picking the best players. Are you always going to have your best you look? Hey, we need players that are playing defense first. Your best offensive players. How do you put this blend together?
And there's going to be a couple things here. So I'm going to talk about roles and kind of things we do with that and rotations. That's the next sheet. So here's how we do roles. All right. Once I pick my team, so I've cut some people. Some of you won't have cuts. Some of you have different levels, youth, high school, whatever. I have them fill out something. So I do a minimum of 4 touch points with my players. Okay. And again, stats teacher, I need data. Okay. This is like the data rich world we live in right now, with Google and everything. But so I do it once I pick the team. I have them fill out this sheet, and I'm going to give you this player self evaluation sheet. Actually, I updated this and gave you kind of the updated one, so there's actually more than is in the picture coach put there. But so I do roles. I have them fill that out, and I have a role before our first game. Here's what I see you. Here's where you see yourself. Here's where you kind of fit. Okay, so I'm talking about their role. Then I let a handful of games happen. I need data. All right. I need to see how you are defensively, what kind of shots you're taking, if you're making your shots, if you're not making your shots,
Hmm.
where you fit, where your rotation is. And I can't do that after a scrimmage or even one game. So I usually wait for 3 or 4 games. And then I do another one end of winter break, mid-season ish, and then I do one right before tournament. So I do a minimum of 4, and then I obviously do post, for the returners. I do, an exit interview and do all that kind of stuff. But that doesn't have anything to do with their roles except for next year. So during the season, I do a pre, I got to get a sampling. Then I do a mid-season one because roles change, injuries happen. I mean, shoot, I'm walking in my best scores in a boot today. It's like, what? Well, I screened my thing 2 days. It's like, oh, great. So if he's not ready in 2 weeks, then I'm gonna have to rotate and I'm gonna have to do something different. So this is a great sheet to do it. It's a touching point because, like I said, roles change as the team moves and rotations change and injuries happen and
And
grades
players get
happen
better.
and players get better, players get worse.
Yeah.
Johnny can't hold the ball in the post for a millisecond.
Hmm.
So all of those things, and that's why I think it's important. And the role I had, you might be the 15th guy, and by midseason you might be number 8. Who knows? This is a great sheet, and it's a great touching point. Print it off, use it with them. You do whatever you want with it. I think it's a really good um, touching point to kind of get them moving in the right direction.
Once you do, okay, now they have a little bit of an idea what the role is going to be. They understand why because you're having these touch points with them. I know you're big on touch points and over communicating, but now your players are starting. Hey, now they kind of know what to expect going into game times. Hey, you're going to play a lot. Hey, you're not going to play. Hey, when you come in, this is your role.
Right.
How do you rotate them? And sometimes like we were talking about on the previous slide, how do you adapt when
Yeah, so that's where, again, adaptive coaching a little bit, but go to the next slide, coach, and you can see, and I'll give you this. This is what we use as far as our rotation. So this year's kind of freaking me out a little bit because we before our first game we have like 8 or 9 practices. But I like to think I like to do a rough draft of my now. I never stick with this 100%. Fouls happen, rotate. Injuries happen, kids get in foul trouble. All there's you name it, it happens in a high school game at some point. But I like to build. This is my rotation thing. I like to build because again, this is built out for me because we play 2 18-minute halves in our association, our high school association. Um, but you could take this and adjust it and move it to quarters and all that kind of stuff. But I like to map it out. I like to have an idea. When can I get my best player 2 minutes? Maybe it's the minute before the quarter, and then they get another minute at quarter, or maybe I pull them out, maybe I pull him out a quarter and I let him sit to 2 minutes to begin the second quarter.
Mhm.
Whatever it is, I like to map this out because then I've thought about it. I've thought
Mhm.
about because the problem is you're going to want your best player in at the end of the game.
Yeah.
And you're going to want to have rested them before you get to that 4-minute mark. And I can't tell you the number of times early in my career I'd go and it's like the kid hasn't come out of the game.
Yeah.
He's your stud and he's played 30 minutes and you got and he's gassed. And I told this like 2 years ago. I told one of my best player missed a free throw in the last minute, and it was 100% my fault because I hadn't gotten him the rest he needed.
Yeah.
And he didn't, and he was and I told him, I put my arm around him as we're walking off and go, Sam, that's on me. That's my fault. You missed that. You don't miss free throws. That was on me because I didn't rest you. And I should have, and the game was back. It was one of those games you've all been in those games where
it's tough too, because it's sometimes that you have those bursts of like 4 possessions in a row, something gets crazy and you're up and down faster, you're playing fast. And it's like, now you got a kid that's just gassed
gassed.
But, and it's just really good, especially at the beginning of the year to track. Cause I know you have another coach tracking this and you're probably going to look at this reflectively at the end of the game. How long going through the year before you kind of feel like instinctually, like, okay, now we've gone through like 3, 4, 5 games. I'm starting to get this where it's starting to be like muscle memory up here. You know what players are coming out and minute wise.
There's a little bit of a routine. I would say it's a handful that I get pretty good at. Okay, we're at the 6-minute mark. Whoop, whoop, I grab them to go in. And I don't love. I'm not a hockey coach, so I don't love to do the mass substitution.
Yeah, I'm not either. Same.
I think it's a flow thing, and I would have hated it as a player. So I try to, and that's the hard part is if you're doing twos, the most I'll ever do is 3. Yeah, I like 1 or 2 better. I think it keeps the flow a little bit better.
You need to keep that. You need to keep that chemistry in the court. And again, unless you're like a Grinnell system type coach, where you do that hockey lineup change, but. It's not like for me, it was always like, hey, I know it was usually me. It was my post guy. And it wasn't because he was my post guy and because my backup post wasn't very, but he was the first guy that was going to be out of shape. He's the one that needed the most rest. That's usually the first sub out for me is like, who's going to need the rest the quickest? And the last sub out is be the kid that's in the best shape.
Right. So, and let's number the players. I don't believe in numbering. I think in a non-numbering system, but in terms of best players, we got the best players once. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is your best player. So what I'm always thinking is if I got 1 and 3 out, 2 and 4 better be in. Or if I have 1 and 2 out, I got to have 3, 4, 5 in.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm always thinking about that. I never want my top 3 scorers out and all of a sudden it's 4, 5, and then 6, 8, 9.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we can't put the ball in the hole.
I can tell you sometimes
that sheet really helps with thinking about that because we all know who those kids are. Like
every now and then that would happen. I would look out on the court and I'd look back at my assistant coach. I'm like, whoa, so we don't have anyone that can score out here.
I know.
And if we get stops, I'm like, okay, maybe we can weather it one more possession. Then my hand's on the shoulder of the next. I was like, okay, you got to get back in there.
Right. So that's where I think if you do this, if you play with this a little bit, I think it will help you as a coach think about. Again, I'm trying to approach the deer in the road before I see the deer in the road. When and I'm moving in Wisconsin where there's lots of deers in the road right now.
And then you have data to reflect on.
Yes.
So
yes.
Take me through this now. I know this one's a little bit more in depth.
This is huge. I can't go through it. This is like a 15-page thing.
Hit the big points. What is this and how can you use it?
The big point is that's why I put this slide, but this is gold. So download it. It's got clicks. It's got mental health for you, your assistant coaches. It's got roles, goals. Okay. So the grip is kind of the premise of the entire thing. G is goals, setting goals. R is your role. We just talked about roles a little bit. I is for interpersonal. Those are your touch points. I can talk about that in a second. And the third one, and so I had to make the mnemonic as far as grip goes. It's process. All right. It's really culture. How are you building the traditions that are passed down from generation to generation? Okay. I can't even begin to tell you the amount of stuff. I'm going to touch 30 seconds on interpersonal. Huge. Interpersonal is going to win you the games. I'm telling you. I had an open gym an hour ago. Touch point with every one of my kids. Backup point guard twisted his ankle in football. Did you go to see your trainer? Did you do this? My leading scorer twisted his ankle. Blah, blah, blah. Touch point with another kid. I guarantee I'm in the building. I guarantee I saw all of my players today at some point. I had a touch point at some point. Lucky I got some of them in class, but I had a touch point. It will grow as the season goes. Coach knows about my food drawer. I have food in my room. That is a touch point for me during the season. They can come and get food from me whenever they want. They got to say hi, coach. They got to say thank you, and they got to tell me how their day is going. Touch point. I just want to connect, because when I go to that timeout down the stretch, they will do whatever I say.
Yeah.
They are connected to me. Trust me, they are connected.
That's
right
so
now.
important.
It's so important.
That's
part of the grip. That's that eye and grip. But again, this is just for you. It's something me giving. It's part of the 87,000 pages I'm going to give you as far as building a winning program. But don't just skim over it. There's some great links in there.
Yeah. So